Welcome to Black Health Matters. I'm Darryl Armistead, your host. This episode is a Zoom recording of Howard University group session led by Dr. Clive Callender.
Well, welcome.
Very much. Thank you.
But anyway, there's also an article on aid in dying, which is not available in every state, in many states, as a matter of fact. But it talks about that as well. But it's 9 o'clock, and I guess we've got 25 articles that I know we won't get to complete. So I guess we better get started. John?
Okay. Let's see if I can find it here. Hang on. Seems like I see everything except what I want. Hold on.
Janice is on now.
Yeah, Janice, we were talking about it.
Good morning.
Hi, we're talking about the Washington Post article on the new techniques for treatment of tinnitus, which of course Chris has so badly. So might call his attention to that. It's
right. I saw that, and I was going to. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to him. You know, his has gotten worse. The hearing. He said he's kind of gotten used to the tinnitus. It used to make him literally fall out. And he went to a doctor, and the doctor told him how to cope with it, with the onset, and he can kind of brace himself and get used to it, get familiar with it. It's all day, all night. The hearing has gotten worse. I think I told you he's now wearing 2 hearing aids. But yes, I saw that article. I was going to give it to him.
Good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as this is Black History Month, this is an interesting article on the African American medical pioneers, starting off with Rebecca Lee, who was actually one of the first Black women to receive an MD degree in the United States. Many Blacks had to leave the country to get their degrees, to go to other countries because they wouldn't accept them here. But it's interesting, as after years as a nurse, she made it through in 1864. So it's amazing what our people have had to go through to become successful. But whatever it took, they were willing to do it and overcome the many obstacles and use them as stepping stones to success. And Rebecca Lee was one of the first. Then there's James Smith, who 1837 became the first Black American to receive a medical degree. But again, he had to go outside of the United States, which is sad, but that's the way many of the Blacks got their degrees early on. Leonidas Berry is an interesting guy who lived to 1995, and he was the first Black doctor on staff at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago. But he fought many things, but he also set up groups to go across, Flying Black Medics, which is a group of practitioners who flew from Chicago to Cairo to bring medical care. So he's an awesome figure, as well as Sean Richard Drew, who was the chairman of surgery at Howard University, and who really is the father of blood banking. And he's known all over the world because his blood banking saved thousands, probably millions of lives because of the blood donations that John and John Buchanan and others are doing. It's interesting, and they point out that he was black, and they wouldn't accept they wouldn't accept black blood, and so he resigned from the American Red Cross because of that. They wanted to separate the blood into white blood, black blood, and that kind of stuff. And he fought it. Later on, they finally did it. Lewis Sullivan is the first Secretary of Health of color, who actually is part of the reason we have the MOTEP, because he, Lewis Sullivan, Lewis Stokes, and John Ruffin played a major role in that. He was an awesome doctor and also founding dean of Morehouse Medical College, and was secretary of the Department of Health. And he's an awesome figure, still alive and still functioning today. Marilyn Hughes Gaston is one of the few women in the National Institutes of Health that has really made a difference. And she continues, she's alive. She's still working, but not in the NIH like she used to be. She's done many things. I'm the second black woman to serve as Assistant Surgeon General. And she had the rank of Rear Admiral. Patricia Bath is actually, she's an alumni of Hunter College, where I finished, and was the first one to start doing cataracts the way it's done now. And she's a remarkable woman who died just a few years ago after surgery. But she was remarkable in what she did in terms of getting eye surgery, and so many people have cataract surgery and don't realize this black woman is the one who really got the technique together. Herb Nickens is an interesting guy who was a young guy who died. I think he's playing tennis, but he was first director of the Office of Minority Health and Department of Health and Human Services. It's interesting. He really kind of started the majority minority disparity work, and which after his death became a tour de force for the Department of Health. Alexa Kennedy is the first black female neurosurgeon who nearly dropped out of school, but stuck with it and became a very outstanding neurosurgeon at Children's Hospital in Michigan. Very successful, very productive. Then Regina Benjamin also became known as the 18th United States Surgeon General and the first chair of the National Prevention Council. But she was been responsible for many of the efforts that have been addressed at eliminating the majority-minority health disparity, which still persists. We talk about narrowing it when really the quest should be to eliminate it. But anyway, she's well known. Okay, is that the last one? Oh yeah, and then this, of course, is the newsletter that OTEP is putting out at the end of this month, which talks about the Black female surgeons in transplantation. Dr. Callender, who has been with us on occasion, is the first African-American female transplant surgeon. And there's a long list that she has compiled that shares the fact that there are now a lot more female African-American surgeons. Many of them are unrecognized, but this is an opportunity to uh, actually see as many of them as we know. There are probably more, but these are the ones that we know. Constance Mobley is actually in Houston Methodist Church Hospital, one of the outstanding transplant surgeons there. Now, this is not all of them, but it's an opportunity and an effort to try to get the list to be as complete as possible. Dr. Simpson, Janae Simpson, is the right now she's the professor of surgery and also in charge of development and diversity at Northwestern University. She's been an outstanding transplant surgeon who's really worked in Chicago to get the Black population to get transplanted. You know about her, Darryl? But if you don't,
yeah, no, I don't.
You do know about Janae Simpson?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, she's been working in transplantation in the Black community in Chicago, and is noted for shedding light on the food, the inability to have food food chains, and trying to get Blacks to donate organs, to get transplants, and to narrow the majority minority disparity. And it's nice to see that you've got a relatively long list because when I started out, there weren't. When I first started out, there were none, and then Velma was the first one. And since then, it's nice to see that there's so many others. And that Sherilyn Gordon Burroughs is one of my students that was an outstanding female transplant surgeon who was killed by her husband and in the prime of her career. But she was an outstanding transplant surgeon, and her memory lingers on, and they have many grants and honors that have been bestowed upon her in her memory. Then Motep of Cleveland is featured here, which is one of our Motep sites. And so we've featured, I think that we featured the Detroit site, and this is the Cleveland site, and we plan to feature all of the 6 Motep sites. Yeah. Okay, I guess that's enough of that.
I worked for Dr. Lewis Sullivan, Dr. Callender, years ago at Health and Human Services, and I remember when you came to speak about organ donation. It was quite a while ago. Age.
And then February 28th, we're having the webinar on equity, which is a combination of the National Kidney Foundation and Motep, with myself and many others. And you see a long list of people who will talk about equity. I'm on the panel, but there are many others. Kirk Campbell from Mount Sinai, president-elect of the National Kidney Foundation. They haven't had many Blacks who've been president of the National Kidney Foundation. Velma Scantlebury, of course, the first female Black transplant surgeon. Tangela Purnell, who's associate professor at Johns Hopkins, who has written many papers on the effort to get more Blacks to donate. And Morgan Reed is also a transplant recipient. And Karen Raleigh, who's a Muslim who's been an organ donation advocate for decades. So this is,
I'm sorry. I wanted to tell everybody they can actually register right here from, if you click on your screen, you can actually register for that webinar right from this document.
great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next one. Black History Month, although it's the shortest month, is a month that we need to pack as much as we can into it. Of course, this year is a leap year, so we got 29 days rather than 28. But I thought it was interesting, the 10 myths of cardiovascular disease. I'm too young to worry about heart disease, and actually it starts very early, at 20 on up. Of course, hypertension starts at 10, 11, and 12. I know if I had high blood pressure because there would be warning signs. Of course, it is a silent killer, and there are no warning signs often. And so therefore, getting your blood pressure checked is important. And many articles that talk about the best place to get your blood pressure checked is at home with your own sphygmomanometer, and having that done once or twice a week to see what your blood pressure is. The blood pressure at the doctor's office may or not reflect what your real blood pressure is. So having your own sphygmomanometer and checking your blood pressure at home is important to do. Keep a record of it and show it to your doctor. I know when I'm having a heart attack because I have chest pain. Some people don't have chest pain. They just get shortness of breath. Some get lighthearted. So, but if you have chest pain, there's no question you need to call 911, and that's when I take you to the hospital. Diabetes won't harm my heart as long as I take my medication. You got to make sure that your blood sugar is normalized, and diabetes will harm all of your blood vessels as well as your brain and kidneys. Heart disease runs in my family, so there's nothing I can do. That's totally untrue because there's much you can do. You can, whether you have a family history of it or not, you can get your exercise, you can manage your blood pressure, maintain a healthy weight, control your, decrease your stress, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. All of those things will help overcome the genetic aspects of what causes hypertension. Getting your cholesterol checked at all ages is important because there's a condition called hyperlipidemia, which occurs genetically, and young people have it as well as middle-aged and olders. So getting your cholesterol checked is something you should do anyway. Heart failure means the heart stops beating, which is not true. Heart failure just means that the heart is not pumping the blood out appropriately. As a consequence, you get shortness of breath, swelling of the feet and ankles, and wheezing, and so, which is different from cardiac arrest, in which the heart stops beating and you die. Pains in my leg must be signs of aging. Actually, it's a sign of decreased circulation in your legs, and there's something you can do about it. It can be treated. So if you're having difficulty walking, then you need to see a doctor, and a vascular surgeon may be able to correct it. I should avoid exercise after having a heart attack. Actually, exercise after a heart attack that is approved by your doctor is very important. And 150 minutes, as we've talked about, each week is important, whether you've had a heart attack or not. But if you do exercise and you have chest pain, that means that you have a condition that a doctor needs to help you with, because that is not normal. And so you need to see your doctor so that they can find out why you've got coronary artery disease. Any comments about these myths about cardiovascular disease?
I had a question, Doc, about number 9. Is that AFib?
No, tachycardia is when your heart beats fast. AFib is when your heart beats irregularly. It also beats fast also, but it's irregular. Whereas tachycardia means that your heart rate is higher than normal. If it's higher than 100, that means you have tachycardia, but that does not mean that you have atrial fibrillation. Tachycardia means your heart is beating normally, but it's fast, whereas atrial fibrillation, the heart is beating irregularly and it's fast.
Okay.
The difference is that tachycardia is usually caused by something else, and that can be corrected. But in the arrhythmia, such as AFib, often will require a procedure to convert you from atrial fibrillation to normal heart rate, or give you medication so that you don't get a blood clot because of the atrial fibrillation.
Would a pacemaker be appropriate for those?
Not for atrial fib. Pacemaker is appropriate if you have a slow heart rate. The normal heart rate is from 60 to 100. And if your heart rate is less than 60, that is too slow. And that is a good case for a pacemaker. But some arrhythmias are good, where you have irregular heartbeats that are not controlled, can be an indication for a pacemaker. And they can make all the difference in the world. There's some people who are octogenarians over 80 who have irregular heartbeats. Pacemaker may make a difference, such as night and day, so that somebody who was almost chair-bound or bed-bound suddenly is able to get up and walk around and cook for themselves and do everything else that they used to do before. So a pacemaker can make a big difference. And this is American Heart Month, so it's good to talk about that. Any comments, other questions about the number one cause of death in the world is heart disease and heart failure. So correcting your blood pressure and having a normal heart goes a long way. What's that?
I did learn a new symptom of signs of heart attack. Flu-like symptoms are an indication sometimes that you could have a heart attack. Is that not true?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
Flu-like symptoms are also an indication of heart attack.
What kind of symptoms?
Flu-like. Symptoms that are like flu.
The flu.
Oh, well, the flu is not. Well, here's what is more likely: if you have shortness of breath, and you could have. Sometimes the flu can give you shortness of breath, but one of the commonest things that will give you shortness of breath is a heart attack. So it's the shortness of breath, the inability to breathe, that is more commonly a sign of a heart attack than. But so the flu is different in the sense that you have a fever and chills and those kinds of things. So if you have shortness of breath and you don't have a fever and chills, then that is like a symptom of a heart attack. Could be one of the first signs of a heart attack. Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, this is an article that points out that you can be a kidney donor at 70. And we've had many examples of healthy people who are over 70 who donate their organs and they live long lives thereafter. This is a center in Japanese hospital, but this occurs all over the world, in which, and in order to be a donor, you have to be perfectly healthy anyway. And so as long as you're perfectly healthy, age is not a contraindication for transplantation or donation. Although there aren't many donors who are over 80, but the reason is because most people over 80 are not as healthy. They have other issues such as heart disease and kidney disease and lung disease and other things. So for somebody who is healthy, age is not a reason why you couldn't be a donor for somebody.
Dr. Callender, what is that EGFR?
That's glomerular filtration rate. And the normal glomerular filtration rate is anywhere from 80 to 120. So if your glomerular filtration rate is lower than 80, although some centers will tell you that 60 is the lower limit. While that may be true, I prefer to think of 80 as being the lower limit for the glomerular filtration rate, which means you make urine when your blood goes through the kidney, and the kidney filters out the poisons and puts those poisons in the urine. And that is called the glomerular filtration rate, where it filters the bad stuff and puts it in the urine and keeps the good stuff. That's an oversimplification, but that's what glomerular filtration rate is all about.
Thank you. I need simple. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? It is, and I think one of the things that has happened over the last 10 to 15 years, deceased donor have increased every year for the last 15 years. Living related donors have either stayed the same or dropped over the last 15 years. And so this is an area that we need to do more of, because living donor kidneys last longer than deceased donor kidneys. And so this is an area that we need to have more people of color to donate organs. All you need is one kidney for life. So if you have two, one could help somebody else, assuming that both of your kidneys are healthy. That's the assumption.
One more question, Doc. It says mortality rates were highest among patients age 70 to 89. Is he talking about the people that need?
It's general. Mortality rates are highest among patients who are older than 70. And that's why many people think that they couldn't be donors. And so, but that's why if you're going to be a donor, you have to be perfectly healthy. And your kidneys have to be perfectly healthy, and you have to be in good shape. So, but it is true that, of course, the older you get, the mortality rate increases in general. This is an article that it kind of frightens a bit, that young Black women have the highest blood pressures, and they have triple the risk of stroke versus people without hypertension. And what that means is, if you've got high blood pressure and you're a woman, that you need to make sure that your blood pressure is controlled. And when we say controlled, we usually mean in the range of 120 over 80 or thereabouts. And if it's higher than that, it's ideal to get it down in that range, because particularly if you're a Black woman, the likelihood of stroke is greater. And of course, cardiovascular disease and stroke are very common in our population. As you know, the commonest cause of kidney disease is diabetes, and secondly is hypertension. And both of these predispose you to having a stroke. But they're saying that in women, they are more likely to have it than men. And particularly if they have hypertension. And since it is a silent killer, you're not going to know it unless you get your blood pressure checked. Any questions or comments? I hope all of you have blood pressure apparatuses at home, so you can take your blood pressure, because that's the best place for you to get your blood pressure checked at home. You can get it at the doctor's office as well, but the most appropriate place to get your blood pressure checked is at home. by you. Any comments or questions about this very important article? Okay. This is a nice article that talks about things we already know, but we need to reemphasize. 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night is important. Keeps the blood pressure normalized and protects against heart disease and many other issues. You notice that's number one, quality sleep. Second, keep your blood pressure, blood sugar in the range of 100 or lower. And then something we emphasize all the time, eat as much vegetables, fruits, and lean proteins and healthy fats. Monitor the sugar. Salt and sugar are not good for you. Though we love it, it's not good. Manage stress, easy to say, and that's why meditation is important. Prayer, meditation, exercise. And there are many ways to exercise, but walking is one of the simplest ways. Of course, John Buchanan is a swimmer, which I think is one of the greatest exercises. But the walking is good for most people as well. Then for control your cholesterol, well, first you got to get your cholesterol checked. And to make sure that the good protein is, the HDL protein is normal and the LDL protein is not too high, because the high LDL cholesterol gives you arteriosclerosis, which is what causes heart attacks. And then he puts number 5, blood pressure, and he says that the blood pressure is higher than 130/80, then this is dangerous, and that's correct. So I just say in the 120s or lower. Any questions about this?
Yeah. For number one, is it an issue for someone who sleeps more than 9 hours, like maybe 10 hours? It's be dangerous.
There are studies that suggest that over 10 hours is not healthy. Yes.
And
So
why would that be?
I don't know. The studies just associated a higher mortality and heart disease with people who sleep longer than 10. Remember, Myra Thorpe is one of those who tends to sleep more than 10 hours. And when we looked into that, they did indicate that they didn't explain why, but they did say that it's associated with a higher mortality rate.
Could it deal with depression as well? That people who are depressed have a tendency to sleep a lot.
I don't know the answer to that, so I'm afraid to speculate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Dr. Callender, good morning. What about less than 7 hours? Is that
not good? It's not good. 6 hours is not good enough. There have been studies that have looked at it and figures below 7 hours, and they say 6 hours is not good. I know many of us don't do the 7 to 9, but that's the figure. 7 is the lower number. 6 is not good.
Thank
6
you.
hours is not good.
It's you.
I have irregular sleep habits, and I sleep an average of 5 hours a night. Haven't always been that way. It's just recent couple of years. Health-wise, I think I'm okay. And I do keep my doctor's appointments. But it's difficult I have broken sleep patterns, but after that 5 hours, I might doze, wake up, doze. But basically, it's only 5 hours a night. With that being said, with this article, it could possibly affect my blood pressure. For now, it's good, but I'll make sure to track it.
Okay, there's many ways to look at it, but the bottom line is that 7 to 9 is what is the feature that they recommend. in all the studies. I've looked at many studies that looked at 6 hours, and they said that that still doesn't give the brain enough time to recover from the day's activities.
Yeah. One thing you may need to check if you're not getting enough sleep are your magnesium levels. Um, and if they are low, you need to take magnesium supplements. Take them at night, right before you go to sleep. And magnesium will help you sleep more soundly and longer.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think you may wonder, you got a comment, Elizabeth?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Callender. Cocoa, it's not the best tasting thing in the world, but if you don't have a milk allergy or something, sometimes I just add 1 teaspoon to my hot milk or cocoa, and that when I know my magnesium is low, and that helps a great deal. And exercise will wear you out too, so you get a good sleep. So it's all those components, all those pillars that keep our. That's what I do.
Right. And the exercise that really helps sleep is lifting weights. Doesn't really have to be heavy weights, but just where you can get a pump and to satisfy that half hour a day or 15 minutes or whatever. But whatever you invest in lifting, it will help your sleep.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any other comments? If not, you may wonder why so much emphasis on high blood pressure. Well, as we mentioned before, the #1 cause of death in the world is cardiovascular disease, and hypertension is the leading problem with that. And so if you can do nothing else, of course, you can do other things. One of the things that you need to do is to get your blood pressure controlled. That goes a long way to increase longevity. And that's why there's so many articles on high blood pressure. Now, one of the things is also you have to be aware that if you take blood pressure medicine that gives you side effects, you have to let your doctor know, because and so you don't just stop the high blood pressure medicine. What you do is you let your doctor know that you've got side effects, and you want to be on a blood pressure medicine that doesn't give you the side effect that you're complaining about. And since we have so many antihypertensives now, there's no reason for you to take a high blood pressure medication that gives you side effects. And so this is important, because many years ago when I first started, we didn't have that many antihypertensive drugs. And so people felt they had to deal with the side effects that occur from some of those medications. But now we have so many antihypertensive medications that is no longer the case.
Dr. Callender, good morning, everyone. What is milk of magnesia good for?
It's good for constipation. I wouldn't recommend it for hypomagnesemia, which is a low magnesium. But I guess I answered your question. It's good for constipation.
I had issues with my blood pressure medication, and a question after this. When I would stand, I would get lightheaded, almost like vertigo.
Yeah.
So my doctor, and I think I was taking atenolol by itself, and he switched me to a lower dose of atenolol, and then added lisinopril. There's all kind of different, like you said, medications for hypertension now. And the other thing, I mean, this first statement here caught my attention. When to scale back or to stop them completely. How would you know if you change your lifestyle, you change your exercise patterns, you get healthy, start eating better. How would you know when it's okay to stop altogether?
When the only way you would know that is when you taper down your medications and let's say your blood pressure's around 110/80, and as you lower your blood pressure, as you down your blood pressure medication, your blood pressure stays in that range. Then and only then would I think you could do that. You notice one of the figures, it said only 1 out of 4 people who are hypertensive actually have their blood pressure under control. So it's rare that occurs. But when you get to the point where your blood pressure is less than 120/80, without the use of antihypertensives, then you could do that. But even then, I would think you would check your pressure at home, maybe once or twice a week, and see that you maintain it, because sometimes when as you age and as you may not no longer. In other words, you need to be monitoring it to make sure that it stays that way, because if after let's say 6 months, it goes back up again, then you're not under control. So I think the real key is to monitor your blood pressure, and when you get to the point where your blood pressure is normal without any medications, keep monitoring, and feel free to do that.
It just seems a little scary, or you know dangerous even, for
I
us
agree.
as individuals to think, well, maybe I don't need this blood pressure medication because it's affecting my libido or whatever, and then you do that.
I think it's bad advice. I
Yeah,
agree with you. I agree it's bad. I would never put that there. But I think monitoring is the key to make sure that you're under control. And the fact that 1 in 4 people being treated for hypertension are not properly controlled is a reason why we still have so many people who have strokes and other complications from hypertension. So monitoring is the key, along with the other things that we've mentioned. Steve Ferdinand is one of the outstanding Black doctors who's been a hypertensive specialist for decades now. And you see what he says there. You cannot just withdraw abruptly with the medications because there's a rebound phenomenon in which when you stop the medication abruptly, the rebound is that the blood pressure goes out of control and it becomes higher than ever. So just stopping medication is not a safe thing to do, and it's better to be under the care of a physician when you do that. Any comments or questions about any of these issues? Okay. Well, this is an interesting article that talks about everything these days is robots, and they have a robot that can go through your blood vessel and eliminate that blood clot or plaque that's blocking the blood vessels. And so this is one of the newest developments that they put this robot into the blood vessel, and of course we have other ways of doing it, but this is a relatively new that is being tested. So that isn't something that willy-nilly you go and do, because we have other techniques that work that eliminate blood clots. As we mentioned before, strokes occur because of one or two reasons. Either you have a blood clot that blocks the circulation in the brain, or you have a hemorrhage in the brain in which bleeding damages the brain. The blood clot, when diagnosed early enough, often can be dissolved by medications or by techniques that remove the blood clot. The hemorrhage is much more feared because the bleeding sometimes cannot be stopped. And most often the bleeding is associated with high blood pressure. And that's why we talk so much about controlling the blood pressure. Because when the blood pressure is uncontrolled, you can get bleeding in the brain, and bleeding in the brain is difficult to control. Any comments about this new technique that may become available in the near future?
Question about how it works. Okay, controlled by magnets. So they take a magnet on the outside and just, physically move the robot, by hand, or how do you have any idea how it works?
Oh, it's pretty much as you said. They just the magnet does it. But remember, this is experimental, and it has not gotten to the stage that it is approved by FDA for treatment.
And Dr. Callender, it is so tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the potential for good is great. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, is this? Yeah.
I'd like to back up a little bit to blood pressure. Black patients are more salt sensitive than whites, which is due to a tendency to retain sodium in the kidneys. So black race population manifests higher blood pressure response to change in salt intakes than whites. So, we follow their diet, but salt is like really not good for us. A lot of aside from men complaining about hypertensive medicines, and the change in libido. Another common complaint is that blood pressure medicines have a diuretic effect of making you urinate more often, which could really be problematic. But if you just take the salt out of your diet, then it's possible that you're going to have overall good effects by removing the salt from your diet. It's addictive. It tastes so good, but even just totally eliminating the salt, not putting the added salt when you're cooking, can make a huge difference on your blood pressure and being able to adjust medications to avoid the problems of diuretic effect of excess urination.
And I think that we also have another article that says exactly that. That if you all they did was you substitute salt substitutes, and that alone lowered the blood pressure. So you can imagine just stopping salt will do the same thing. Yeah, there it is. That's the article. Just as Darryl had said. Salt, the two most dangerous substances that we know of that we take in commonly are salt and sugar. Easy to say, hard to do, but that's a fact. It's a fact.
Just as a sidebar, I've given up sprinkling salt on my food for Lent.
That's healthy. That's healthy. Hey, Dr. Perez, I see you here again. Any comment?
I was going to say that I've learned a lot. Wonderful to hear. I guess to really begin to address salt intake, you have to address eating out.
Yes.
Um, because if you cook for a week and then have one meal, definitely if it's from a fast food entity, you will taste how salty it is. And they have to do that to be able to preserve the meat. So cutting down on eating out, I think, will make a significant impact on salt intake.
Any other comments before we leave this? Because
Yes, Dr. Callender. What I really love about the sessions where you explain everything and so that we can understand it and everything, it has helped me. Even though I'm a wellness coach, it has helped me because I had the white coat syndrome, and so they finally they finally gave me a monitor, and now I used to have a monitor, my own monitor, in my diary. So now I got everything that goes direct to my doctor, and I can also put my diary on there. And what I monitor is I monitor my blood pressure because it determines in 24 hours how it affected my body. And so that taking my blood pressure every morning determines what I eat that day. And one of the things that I had to give up was spinach because it had surprise sodium in it.
okay, thank you.
Another comment about what you can do to replace salt, because main complaint, it takes salt and said my food is just so bland, it doesn't taste good. Use things like lemon zest, vinegar, cayenne pepper, black pepper. Get familiar with your spices. They'll make the flavors pop. Your food will taste so good, and after a while you won't even think about the salt.
I had a question,
And
Doc, about the salt substitute. Um, so it still addresses that need that we have. What is the salt substitute?
Actually, this explains it here, that the salt substitute that they give is potassium. And potassium, if you take too much of it, causes its own problems. But yeah, potassium is generally is the salt substitute. And so you can't take too much of that either. But it is clear that just the substituting of salt with salt substitute will decrease your blood pressure. It's interesting because in bananas, they have a lot of potassium, and that's the antihypertensive factor of bananas.
yeah, Dr. Callender, I keep this article on my refrigerator. It talks about the three amigos, potassium, calcium, and potassium, calcium. It's three of them.
Magnesium.
Magnesium, that's what it is. The three amigos. And it talks about that dark green leafy vegetable.
Okay, great. Any other comments before we move on? One of the great things about this session is we have so many people who can contribute, and we appreciate the fact that you all feel free to chime in and educate us all. This is an article that talks about the cholesterol-lowering diet for heart health, and one of the things that people don't realize is that cholesterol-lowering diets are good as well, and that everyone does not have a normal cholesterol. Some people have genetic hyperlipidemia, which as a matter of fact, I have a good friend who had a heart attack and almost died from it, and had to be placed on cholesterol-lowering medication. And so knowing what your triglycerides level are, your cholesterols, and recognize the value. Once again, we talk again of plant-based diets is something that is meritorious. And so eating more fiber, and plants, and exercising all go towards addressing the many ways in which cholesterol and triglycerides have to be managed. But if you don't get your cholesterol level, then you don't know about it. The trans fats are actually pretty much illegal now, although French fries and those things still will test you. And this kind of talks about the things that egg yolks and reduced meats. Yeah. So I think this is good advice here in terms of heart healthy diets. I know we're not going to live forever, but anyway, taking steps in the right direction is still good for you. This is an article to me which is counterproductive to me. A healthy diet is important whether you're on an Atlantic diet or Mediterranean diet. Doesn't really matter. But since it's something new, I think that any diet for which you have fruit, vegetables, emphasize nuts and fish, that you're going to be okay. Whether it's the Mediterranean diet or any other diet, I think this shows you a list of the foods that are in the Atlantic diet, and it's good to look at it and see that they're pretty much are the same things that are recommended anyway. Of course, if you're a vegan, then the products that will not do well for you, like milk and the fishes, but and eggs. But Darryl, any comment?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a
Bread.
I have a question for
Bread
Darryl.
is
Pulses, what's that?
You said bread is what?
bread usually has high sodium content. So for
Yeah.
hypertensives or black people, and it's also calorie dense. So if you need to lose some weight, skip the bread.
I had a question for Darryl. This one right here under eggs, pulses, what is that? Anybody know?
I don't
Don't
know.
have a clue.
Okay, here we go.
Well, one of the potatoes is probably underappreciated. Uh, it's interesting they talk about red meat and lean red meat, and so those of you who really want to look at the diet can look at this and decide how you want to
Oh,
change your
I,
diet.
I found the answer for pulses on Google.
Okay.
They include beans, lentils, peas,
Those are
kidney
good things.
beans, chickpeas,
Oh yeah.
soybeans,
Oh yeah.
mung beans.
Yeah, those are the good things, right? Okay. They call them pulses, huh?
Live and
Okay.
Yeah,
learn.
because I think they call them pulses because they make you poot in rhythm.
Leave it to Darryl.
The more you eat, the more you poop.
Well, that's good for you. Good for you.
Well, I would suggest staying away from Atlantic salmon and over prefer the wild salmon. The Atlantic salmon is, put in a vat, and that's how they're fed. They're not, they don't naturally spawn.
Okay, thank you for that. This is something that people who are on blood thinners for different conditions, or you take aspirin. Kale, of course, is a vegetable that is suggested that if you're, because it has large amounts of vitamin K, which stops the, it's the opposite effect of what blood thinners do. And so if you eat kale, you have to keep in mind that you're doing just the opposite of what your blood thinner is doing. So what that means is that you can take kale, but you need to be very careful about it so that you should become a kale enthusiast if you're on blood thinners, because blood thinners actually are the opposite direction of what vitamin K does. Vitamin K is more or less can cause clots, whereas blood thinners do just the opposite. They keep you from forming clots. Now, so go ahead, Darryl.
I think turmeric and grapefruit are not recommended if you're on blood thinners.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. What was the other word there?
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit and turmeric.
Grapefruit.
The spice, turmeric.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dr. Atto has a question, Doc.
Hello.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Dr. Callender, thank you for all what you have been doing. I have a quick question. I don't know if anybody can help me with this. Is there any major nutritional value between wild caught and farm raised seafood products like fish? Is there any major nutritional value between wild caught and farm raised? I found out that they taste different in my mouth, and their prices are different. The farm raised is cheaper. But as for the nutrition they provide, is there any major difference? Anybody can help me with that?
I don't know the answer to that, although I've seen a couple of articles that have discussed it, but I don't know the answer to that. Darryl, you have any ideas to what is the main difference between the wild seafood and the farmed seafood?
Yeah. Let's see. I was looking for the official answer on Google, but without looking at it, what they generally do for farm-raised fish is that they add hormones, antibiotics, hormones, the growth hormones to have fatter fish, so you can increase your crop yield, so to speak. The antibiotics, okay, they're in a more dense environment if you as farm raised, because you can have farm raised catfish too. And so basically the fish are swimming in their own waste a lot more than in a free environment. And so you have to do things to keep them healthy, to get them to the dinner plate. And so, yeah, your fish are going to be more toxic in farm-raised environments than they are wild salmon or wild catfish. So whenever you can, you want to avoid farm-raised fish.
Okay. Okay, they taste different. They don't taste, the farm raised do not taste right in my mouth, and although they are cheaper, but they taste kind of funny in my mouth. That's why I brought this question. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing, especially with salmon, salmon is redder in the stores than it is in the wild because they add dye to it to make it more attractive, so you'll buy it.
Okay.
There's a long history of toxic effects of food additive dyes.
Okay.
There is a restaurant called Long John Silver, and on
Yes.
the menu, they always advertise farm-raised eggs and chicken and different things like that. So that leads a person to think that because they are not caged, they're going to be better.
Okay.
But what you all
I
are
think
saying,
you're talking about free range, which is a different issue. And like, is free range really free range? A lot of times it's false advertising.
yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I think I learned a little bit today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. This is an article on good old Cheerios and Quaker Oats, and that there's a group called EWG that looks at everything, and they talk about the pesticides and so many things, and often we think that Quaker Oats and Cheerios are free from that, but apparently there are pesticides in that as well. Although most people refer to oats as being the safer variety. This is an article that says that pesticides are found in that as well. I didn't realize Quaker Oats is a division of PepsiCo.
Right. Just like in the article that we discussed a while back, that the cigarette makers makes the cookie, the Oreo cookie.
Ah, used to be one of my favorite cookies. Yeah, full of sugar though. This was an interesting article that I'm sure this group would appreciate. How music boosts the cognitive health after the age of 40. And there have been a number of articles that have pointed out that the aging brain really appreciates music. And I think we've had many examples of how people who play instruments and how music and octogenarians and older people positively influences their health and their aging and their memory. And this is an article that talks about the benefits of playing a musical instrument. A lot of musicians out there, what are your comments? You see all of the benefits: improve memory, enhance concentration, stress reduction, increase creativity. Any comments?
Yeah, this article is absolutely true, and it's medical gold.
Playing a musical instrument, it's definitely, it's good for your spirit, but it really, it has highlighted my short-term memory loss. If it weren't for my iPad, I couldn't do my gigs. I have to, my memory is very, very poor, especially when you're talking about, I've got like 900 songs on my iPad, and I can't remember them. Even if it's 40 or so per gig, possibly. If it weren't for my iPad, I couldn't remember them. But
900 songs?
Yeah, that's what I have on my iPad. I play with different groups and orchestras and everything. So I put all of my music on my iPad. Some of the songs, I mean, you play so often over and over again, I memorize them. But if I'm playing with different groups, and it's really hard for me to remember all of that stuff. So, but
Yeah.
I think probably better. Definitely, music has enabled me to relax, to sleep sometimes. It definitely changes my mood. The physics of music is also an interesting concept because you're not gonna if you want to relax, you're not gonna play hard rock. You you probably be better off playing choir music or orchestral music, symphonic, styles of music. But yeah, I love this article though.
Okay.
I've heard, we've had plenty of articles about music per se, and that it's good for you. But I saw in this article about playing the instruments. So I think it's time for me to tune up my piano and start playing again.
Yay.
Well, very few people talk about the singers. As a matter of fact, some of you don't even think
And singing.
singers are musicians.
But they are. They are.
But this article does give us an inclusion.
Yeah. So if you can't play an instrument, you probably can sing unless you're tone deaf. And singing can really lift your spirits,
Oh yeah.
improve your mood. It'll do a lot for you. But just be honest. If you're a bad singer, go somewhere where you don't bother people that get offended by your lack of skill.
Like in the shower.
Yeah, you're safe in the shower. You're right.
Or you can the calendar, or you can be a solo singer. Means that you sing so that nobody else hears it but you.
Solo, can't nobody hear it.
I love the conclusion, though. It's very great. Yeah.
I love playing guitar. I love to play guitar, although I'm not so good at it. I have one nice guitar in my house. But listening to music also, listening to music sometimes relaxes you. That's
absolutely
exactly that's what I do most of the time. Yeah.
If you go to an opera, it'll put you to sleep.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is interesting because we don't often recognize that mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, and lice make life difficult. And the incidence has doubled over the last 20 years. And Lyme disease and other disease in which these vectors are problematic. It's important for them to do what they're doing in terms of trying to decrease. Those of you who've had Lyme disease or anything like this would appreciate it. So it's a welcome information to know that they're working to do this. It's particularly important to people who move around in the grass. Because, and then of course the mosquitoes get you whether you're in the grass or not, and fleas and those things. So the emphasis on decreasing the vector diseases is welcome. Any of you have any personal experience with any of this? Want to make any comments?
One vector is malaria caused by mosquitoes, and blacks have sickle cell because it's a mutation that helps protect against malaria. That was a historical major cause of death in Africa. So sickle cell actually protected us. It's just that we don't have the rate of malaria over here in the United States. And so, it was a blessing, but now it's a curse.
Well, malaria is still one of the common causes of death in the world, which is amazing. Okay.
Opportunity for advocacy, because we disproportionately are in areas, live in areas, are exposed to areas in which these vectors reside. And so we must always, ring the alarm to address it. Standing water, common things that put us at risk. So, dialing up 311 for a neighbor who's unable to, because it affects the community, becomes very important.
Thank you. Now, you may want to make some comment, Lucy, about this historic change to opioid treatment policies. This is the first time in more than 2 decades that they've updated overdose prevention and response toolkits because of the alarming increase in deaths. Of course, I was shocked to see that not only is the infusion of drugs common cause of death, but also is smoking and snorting. And the fact that they have toolkits, and the fact that you can get over-the-counter is something that is very positive. Do you want to make any more comments about that, Lucy?
Just that as the population changed, I think Malcolm X said that the rooster or the chicken, the rooster comes home to hatch, that when it was a significant issue in our community, it really wasn't addressed. And now it is an opportunity for us to make sure that there's equity in making Narcan and these treatment kits available.
So you're suggesting that's the only reason why we're doing this now, is because the whites are more involved?
Yes.
Yeah, well, okay.
Well, also, you have to look where the resource funds come from, where there's more plentiful resource funds and other resources that promotes that.
Yes, and those policies, though, are made. The numbers didn't significantly change. It was that now you have a population that has a political and economic investment in this. Because, just as, we tend to get to a point where we other stuff. So when it's not me and it's other, then I can walk by it. I don't have to pay attention, but now it's in their house.
Was
and so
anybody else,
there's a different sensitivity to it. So
was anybody else surprised about the fact that smoking is more commonly a cause of death from opioid overdose, and snorting as well? I wasn't as aware that they were surpassing in IV administration of these drugs, snorting and smoking. And I was surprised to see that they are now a more common cause of drug overdose deaths. Anybody else surprised, or were you all aware of that?
Not aware, but not surprised either.
Okay, well, I guess our children and grandchildren have to become more aware of the fact that by smoking and snorting, they have the same risk as by taking an IV. Sometimes they aren't aware of that.
And maybe the media, we've done a great job of showing that injecting drug use, it was visualized as something horrible and something that you didn't want to engage in, whereas snorting and smoking is more glamorized.
Yeah.
Also, to consider, how dangerous, sharing needles can be. All the other diseases you could die from, AIDS and things like that, hepatitis C, and all the other auxiliary diseases that get passed on with dirty needles. So, I mean, it's much cleaner and directly to the brain.
By smoking and snorting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talk about xenotransplantation, and one of the things that we don't talk too much about is the fact that we get diseases from dogs, cats, and other species, and this is becoming more and more an issue. We talk about the smallpox, monkeypox, and cowpox, and these other things in which we're getting diseases from animals, other species. And this now is becoming more and more an issue. And so it's important to recognize and be aware of the fact that the so-called pets can be sources of disease as well. Many of you have pets?
Yeah, yes, we do, but
Yeah, and keep in mind that and so zoonosis is when you have an infection that's comes from one species and goes to another. HIV was characteristic of it, but there are many zoonotic infections, and that's what zoonosis is.
it seems like there are many more pets today than it used to be. I mean,
wow.
It seems like every other household now has a pet.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can see why the rise in.
Yeah, it's amazing as you go down the street, you see so many people out walking their pets.
Yeah, and some of them have 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I think it's COVID related in my neighborhood. I mean, during COVID, that's all you saw up and down the street, big ones, little ones, fat ones.
Teeny.
Okay. Since this is Black History Month, I got to talk about our real heritage. We're descendants of Africa. In Africa, having pets is not an African thing. Recently, they started doing it, imitating Europeans. But having pets is very much a part of European culture. It's not ours. We can talk about we love them things, but they ain't healthy.
Well, in Africa, the pets would eat us rather than.
Yeah, but in Africa, well, especially let me talk about Nigeria. Those people who maintain pets are well-to-do. They are fairly rich people. Majority of people in my country are poor. They can't even feed themselves. How much more maintaining a dog or a cat? So if they maintain a dog or a cat, the cat is on his own or her own. On the streets, in the marketplace, in marketplaces, looking for food. So they don't pay too much attention to pets, especially in my country, because they have to feed themselves and their children first before they think about pets.
Yeah.
Thanks for
In
sharing.
an African small village, dogs don't live in the house. They may live outside the house. You don't feed them, you don't name them, but
Exactly.
they have a value because they will bark when the lion is near.
Yeah.
Who's not a good pet.
Dr. Callender, I've been avoiding pets for over 30 years because when I had my liver transplant back in 1993 and my immune system was very low, I just felt as though I should just stay away from pets.
Okay, thanks for sharing. This is interesting because loneliness is now declared a public health emergency in Silicon Valley. Loneliness is a problem that is surfacing more, and I think the pandemic heightened it. But it's interesting. That's the first county to make such a declaration. Loneliness is something that actually kills. I mean, smoking, diabetes, and all those things are problematic, but so is loneliness. So it's interesting to see that this surfaces as we look at dementia, depression, anxiety, heart disease, and stroke, that we're putting that in the same category as them, which is it's overdue, which is overdue. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Callan, I see that it's tied into depression and anxiety as well, that you talked about.
Yeah. Loneliness. Wow. You know, you think one of the things that is interesting to me is that John Tatum talks about his father who wasn't lonely because as he got older and his friends died, he got younger friends. So it's interesting
There you go.
the way that people cope with loneliness, and that was a superior way that he coped with it. I thought it was fascinating.
I have a dear friend of mine who lost her husband last year. And since then, living in a house by herself, she is a different person. She's almost unrecognizable to what she was before her husband died.
Really?
We are, a couple of us are really concerned, you know. She left a text on my phone the other day, Betty, please call me. But that's been a week ago. I've called her, I've texted her, no answer. No.
To be a bunny.
She was so outgoing. She actually was a a Playboy bunny at one
Really?
time. Yes. And she was an airline stewardess. She was
Really?
flamboyant. But since her husband died, I invited her to dinner Thanksgiving, and she came in, she wouldn't even sit at the table. She sat on the side, she was ready to go because my dinner wasn't ready exactly when I said it was going to be. She was ready to go, and I kind of talked her into staying. She stayed a little while and ate her dinner, and then she was ready to go. I had even asked my sister who lives around the corner from her to pick her up. So, because parking is kind of difficult in my neighborhood, but she definitely said, no, I'm going to drive. And I see now why, because she wanted to be ready to hit it whenever she got ready. And so I talked to one of my old friends. Both of these are church members, by the way, John, old church members of mine. And he's been trying to call her. She must have answered one day and said, oh, I'm getting ready to get a shower. I'll call you back. Haven't heard. So I have made up my mind. I've got to go go by there. She lives not too far from me, so I've got to just knock on the door. Whether she'll open it or not, I don't know. But
she has children. Any
she
children?
has one daughter, but they aren't on the best of terms.
Okay.
And she has two grandchildren, but they don't. I guess the daughter also sees this change, so she may not want her children around her right now.
Yeah.
You know, but it's difficult.
She got good
when
memory.
You see, yeah, she I mean, there's nothing wrong with her memory, just like my husband said.
Bring me a bottle of wine.
She
You want that wine?
years ago, she told my husband, when I come to see you, I'm gonna bring you a bottle of wine. And when she came for Thanksgiving, she brought the bottle of wine.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
her demeanor and the way she acts is just a total change. So loneliness, I said all of that to say loneliness is really something.
Yeah. Any other comments before we go to the next one? Yes, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I just want to say, I'm saying goodbye.
Okay, all right. Bye. Well, this will be the last one, I guess. But CRISPR, we've been talking about CRISPR and genetic editing for quite a while, but it's something that is here to stay. The question is, how much good will it do, and how do we monitor? It's interesting that now sickle cell disease and thalassemia and other diseases are being treated by this great development. But we still don't know the long-term consequences of CRISPR-Cas9 and genetic editing. But we do know that it needs to be monitored, and it needs to be done under circumstances that we all approve of. Right now, it's supposed to be limited to diseases that would disable or kill you. And as long as it stays that way, that's probably good. But there's so many applications for this genetic editing. But I must remind us all that we don't know the long-term effects of the genetic editing, although it's something that is going to be good for the management of many diseases, as the gene editing is demonstrating for xenotransplantation and, as we mentioned, sickle cell and thalassemia, and it has many other ways in which it's going to benefit us. But we must also recognize that there may be downstream effects that we aren't aware of yet. And so the time will tell about the long-term benefit of the many ways in which gene editing is going to affect us. Any comments about this? This will be our last article. We have many others that we'll have to do next week.
I have a comment, Doc. So I guess I've been watching too many sci-fi movies, thinking about CRISPR-Cas9 as a weapon, weaponizing it to use against humanity. So I mean, even cloning, so hopefully countries in the world and scientists in the world will, be ethical with the application. I mean, there's hardly any international control over that. I don't, I mean, some countries are, positive and good, and some countries aren't.
Okay.
Well, I'm not scared. I'm just excited. This could be a cure for cancer.
Yes. Could be a cure for anything. As it has as you say, the positive use of it is astounding. We have not even addressed the negative use of it. And so, many things, it's not whether we can do it or not, it's whether we should do it or not. And so this is the aspect of it that you're referring to. And the local, regional, or international monitoring of it becomes an issue. Okay, I guess we'll close with this. I see Carol asked us. Carol, did you want to tell us about your comment on the